There will be no more. Welcome to the last Star Wars podcast. I'm going to redo this intro because I didn't like that.
You didn't like my disrespect?
No, I didn't. Thank you. There will be no more. Welcome to the last Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Chandler, here with my co host, Christian Miller, with his hand puppets. How's it going, Christian?
What's up? Has it been a week since we last recorded?
Yes, it has been exactly a week. And so if you guys didn't listen to last week's episode, it was our Future of Star Wars Part 2. I would highly suggest that you go listen to that episode just so you can kind of know what's coming up, what series we got coming up, and a bunch of other stuff. Before we get into this episode, however, I would like to remind everyone about National Star Wars Podcasting Day, the first annual celebration about the what would be the anniversary of Star Wars podcasting. That will be on February the 7th. I think at this point, Christian, almost 40 podcasts taking place in National Podcasting Day. And all of us will be uploading a special episode on February the 7th. If you would like to be a part of this, you can go to Star Wars Pod Day on Instagram, or you can share the hashtag SWPD 2021 on Instagram or Twitter. So please help us get the word out about this special celebration. This will be the 22nd anniversary of the very first Star Wars podcast that went live in 1999.
Do you
Yeah.
ever think about how your family, your older family members are like, how's whatever your podcast is, how is that doing? And like they sort of know what it is, but not really. And it feels like this new current thing that's only for our generation, or at least like
And then you realize
people,
that just Star Wars has been podcasting since 1999.
yeah, like it's been around for longer than us.
Yeah.
Yet it's still like we're celebrating something older than us, but it's still young enough for like our parents to not understand it.
Yeah. It's because podcasting didn't really become a I guess reliable medium until Joe Rogan became famous because
Oh,
he
in terms
is
of like a career, yeah.
because yeah.
But I mean, I think it was like I had like a 2005 Guinness World Record book, and I sort of knew what podcasts were because there was a record for the most downloads from like Ricky Gervais. Like he had a podcast,
Yeah, I remember that.
but like he wasn't like getting ad sales, but it was popular in some regard, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, I think
Like,
Joe Rogan was like the first person to ever make a career out of just podcasting. Although he already had a career before he did that, but
yeah.
I still think it's crazy that he has the highest grossing podcast of all time. Like that's crazy that it's so
Yeah.
popular. I mean, it's a good podcast. I'm not gonna lie. I've listened to a
Uh,
few episodes.
I'm not gonna get into that.
Some's
It's
good,
not.
some's bad, but overall,
I
I
don't.
think it's pretty okay.
I'd rather not discuss what I think about Joe Rogan here. But
Okay.
and but or even just like have you met anyone that's like in that age bracket to where like they were in the internet age in like the late 90s, like figuring all that stuff out before it was popular?
No.
Do you ever there's like these missing gaps in terms of like generations where like there's like people that like were around for certain things that like people that I know like weren't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I will say that last week I was talking to my dad about the fact that just in the last year and a half, podcasting has gone from even people of our generation don't care about it to there are memes all over the internet about like what happens when two white guys get in a room together. Hey, let's make a podcast. Like, and just in the last year and a half, podcasting has exploded to the point where it's so competitive for views now that the ad places are just making bank off of everyone doing podcasting. And if I know that recently we have been very consistent about putting out content every week, minus 1 week, for the past, what, 6, 7 months. 6 months, maybe.
Then
Has
did
it
we
been
start
that
in like
long?
August?
Yeah,
I
we
think it
did.
was August.
We did start in August.
So it's been
So,
like 4 or 5 months.
dang, it feels like longer. But anyway, I was talking to my dad. If we would have started and if we would have kept doing consistent content a year and a half ago when we started this podcast, we could be much bigger than we are. But because we weren't doing consistent, because we weren't uploading consistently until podcasting had already boomed, we're not getting the views we could be getting because I think we
I
were
don't I don't think the
slightly
boom
late.
was I don't think the boom was as sudden as you think it is though.
It was still after, or it was still before we started going consistent. I
Yeah.
so
I don't know. It's in terms of Star Wars podcasting, I feel like I don't this feels sort of downer to be on a Star Wars podcast saying this, but it's sort of oversaturated at this point. There's like people have their like 4 or 5 Star Wars podcasts that they check into every week.
yeah, but we're the last one, so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
That's there you go. That's what came about with our branding is that we wanted to put a stop to the oversaturation by adding to it, but then cutting it off. No one else is going to
And
do it
then
after
and
us.
then if you go and look at Star Wars Now This, you realize that everything on there is a Mandalorian webs for like the first like 200 podcasts. It was like only Mandalorian podcasts and you were like, "Wow, there are so many podcasts only about the Mandalorian." And then I was like, "Wow, we were one of those for
Yeah.
like a year. We were only about the Mandalorian."
I wonder how many of those are like if they're from the perspective of someone who like or like people hosts that are like just interested in TV and they happen to do
Mhm.
one about this show, or if they're like
Yeah.
mostly people who are Star Wars nerds.
Yeah, because you and I both know we have a mutual friend, if you would call them that, that has a podcast about like he has like 3 different podcasts all about TV shows, including The Flash and Supergirl and I think Arrow. But like when you see him, he seems more like a Star Wars nerd or like a football guy than a CW guy. And so it's kind of I don't know if he's like a super big CW nerd, but he has 3 apparently pretty successful podcasts.
Is this
Um,
your third and long co-host?
Nah, this would be a father of one of our friends.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess so.
I don't know.
I,
You
I've
you
I've
know him better than
I've
I do, though.
I've had
So
more conversations with him, and he's talked
yeah,
more about Star Wars than football, is what I'll say.
yeah. Well, and I'm surprised he doesn't have a or I mean a Star Wars podcast. You know, so
Yeah,
so there you go. And maybe everyone's first hobby is not what they podcast about. But who knows?
with us it is
Yeah, I mean, I have 2
so much so,
podcasts.
so much so that it's driven us to other hobbies.
It's kind of bad. So this episode, if you guys can't tell from the title, uh, is about our top 5 favorite characters, plus a few honorable mentions on each side. The reason that we're doing an episode like this, that is very different than what we've done for the past few months, is because after you go from August to January being super critical about everything in a thing. So if you guys don't know, and you guys haven't been
Talking about
listening,
directors and subtext and
yeah. So if you guys
yeah.
don't know, we did an entire marathon where we watched all 11 Star Wars movies in a matter of 4 weeks, 5 weeks. We watched all 11 movies and then we then proceeded to do hour-and-a-half episodes about 2 movies at a time and be super critical about every single one of them. Talk about the storyline and like the imagery involved in them and like how it compares, blah blah blah, all this junk. We went way too far into these movies than we ever
we
have
we
before.
it, we invented our own like form of criticism in
Yeah,
terms of like this. If you watch this next to this, it makes for a good Friday night or whatever.
yeah,
Like
to the point
we
where
made it
like
so hard for ourselves.
yeah, and it got to the point where by the last episode, we were like, wow, so glad that we're done being critical on everything in Star Wars. And then the next week was like, ooh, Mandalorian, let's go be critical about a TV show for 2 months. And so then we proceeded to do an entire season of The Mandalorian where we were more critical than we were last season because, it was a different season and so after that, Christian and I were talking, and we're really tired of being critical about Star Wars. We just want to sit back and have a nice conversation about why we like Star Wars, because you guys may think that we just hate Star Wars because we're very critical on this show. Sometimes, like sometimes where we like it. I mean, we do. We wouldn't be podcasting about it if we did.
Maybe not just like hating it, but like over analyzing it.
Yeah, that's more
You
like
know?
it. And trust me, we would not be doing a podcast about Star Wars if we both didn't absolutely love Star Wars. Like we've both been into it for way too long for most of our lives, and it's just been that thing that's constantly there. And no matter how much we watch it, we might take some time off, but we always go back to it because we love Star Wars. And both of us are kind of in that space right now where we have been overly critical about Star Wars so much that we just don't really want to have to go analyze things anymore. And so for the next few weeks, we're not going to do that. We're not going to analyze a whole lot of Star Wars stuff. We're going to do our favorite characters. We're going to do some hypotheticals, an episode about that, where we just be like, what would happen if this happened? Not whether it's good or bad, or just what would happen if this happened instead of this in Star Wars. And we're going to watch some other movies that are Star Wars like or that inspired George Lucas or other writers of Star Wars. And we're going to talk about those movies and why we like those movies. And we might not even talk anything about Star Wars in those movies. I mean, we're guaranteed to do a little bit, but we're not going to really go into Star Wars for a few weeks because we just want to take some time off and not be overly critical about Star Wars for a while. So this is definitely going to be a more lighthearted episode, as you can tell by the friendly banter we had at the beginning. We're kind of chilling out a little bit with the formality of podcasting, and we're just gonna go for it and just talk because that's what podcasting's all about, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what
Like
we're supposed to
this,
do.
even though this is like a list episode, it'll probably still be just like us bouncing around talking about different characters and like what we sort of see in them.
Yeah.
And our picks will probably overlap at some point. So it's not going to feel like this like dramatic like Watch Mojo video where you're going from 10 to 1, like
Yeah.
ramping it up and like, okay, here's the number one best Star Wars character. Like it's not going to be that
Yeah,
serious.
and this isn't like the mutual rankings marathon where we took our characters and then averaged their scores together. We're not doing that. We each have our own lists to which
Yeah.
the other one has not heard yet. So it's going to be fun to kind of like, because I think we each know each other's like top two.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can both kind of guess each other's top two. I know you definitely know mine, and I think every listener knows mine because I mention it a lot. But I don't even think we know each other's like top five fully. So it's going to be really cool to kind of, because we're going to learn about each other and we're going to bond as friends. So yeah. So should we just jump right into it and talk about our honorable mentions on each side?
Yeah.
How many honorable mentions do you have other than your top five?
I think it's like 3.
Okay.
Yeah, 3.
Okay. So what's your
Which
number 8? Or are they in
it's
any
like
order, or is it just like
the whole list.
your honorable mentions? Are they in a certain order,
Yeah.
or is it just like these 3 almost made the cut, but they didn't?
I'll just say 'em. Most of my characters are like major characters, and it's gonna sound absurd that they're not in the top 5,
Yeah.
but they just didn't edge out. But I just will stress that they do mean a lot to me.
Listen, I have major characters that
Actually,
aren't in my top 5 either, so I feel you.
and like also like part of why I like I don't know like so there's a difference between like the actor sometimes and the character. Otherwise, other times it's like totally infused, but it
Yeah.
feels like I'll just get into it with Princess Leia, General Leia, Leia Organa. I love her so much, and I love Carrie Fisher so much, especially in The Last Jedi, but obviously in the original trilogy too. It's just when I was making my list, when I was thinking about the original trilogy, I honestly just couldn't. I just didn't feel anything that really stuck with me character wise. I don't
Yeah.
know why. I'm just sort of this weird point in my taste right now where all I could think about was the Clone Wars, the sequels and prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's how I felt
I,
too, though. That's honestly how I felt.
um, but just I you know, I love Leia. Um, it's just other things take priority, I guess. But
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher is like one of those like great performers and great souls that I mean, I it's not of my time, so it's one of those things where I have to go back and discover all these great things of people who were before my sort of teenage
Mm-hmm.
existence. So, what's
Also,
your first honorable mention?
okay, my first honorable mention goes along with you. Han Solo is my number 10. I really like Han, and I love, especially with the, Solo Star Wars story, we see how far he went from being like a street rat basically to saving the galaxy as part of the rebellion, and he made a change for the better. He stopped caring only about himself and started caring for the greater good of the galaxy, and that's really cool. Now, yeah, I like him, but he's also number 10 on my list because there are just other characters that I feel more attachment to. I've never really been able to relate to Han all that much, so I think that's probably why he's lower on my list. But yeah, Han Solo, number 10.
Um,
Also, for those of you like our opinions change all the time, so this list may not be the same list we have like 6 months from now, just to let you guys know. I think our top few will stay, but like overall, like this, everything past like three is like up to change, I think.
mhm,
So, anyway,
yeah,
your next honorable mention.
and yeah, because like this next one definitely has changed over time. Like I used to think that Obi-Wan was my favorite character.
Yeah.
Um, so he's an honorable mention because I've just sort of faded in terms of how much I relate to him or how much I want to relate to him because I used to be very into like following rules and like very much his sort of perspective of like of like absolute faith in like the system that
Yeah.
you grew up in and like being a purist, I guess, to the point where like there are even people within the Jedi Order who like probably don't follow as many rules as he does,
Mm-hmm.
um, that are still considered great, or like just don't think about as the reasoning is why they just sort of do it. Where I feel like Obi-Wan's the kind of guy that like has a philosophy on like this is why, this is the spirit behind every single thing I do in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely used to be like that, and I definitely still like that aspect of him.
Yeah.
Um, I still think it's really cool. It's just like I've grown into a more of a different character, which I'll get to in my five.
Yeah. I will say
Um,
I'm gonna jump from number 10 to number six real quick because my number six is Kenobi. I
okay.
think 3 years ago he would have been in my top three. But since rewatching and growing up and becoming, an adult, I now understand that like you can't just blindly follow every rule just because you were growing up in it, because not
Mhm.
everything is perfect like it seems to be. Um,
Which also, it's funny that we're thinking more about prequels, Clone Wars, Obi-Wan,
yeah, yeah.
whereas
See,
someone in there like someone who grew up in the '70s, probably their first picture is Ben Kenobi.
yeah. Well, the thing that saves Kenobi from being lower on my list than number six, I think, is post Empire Kenobi. And
Mm-hmm.
also his relationship with Satine, because you see that he's not all about the rules, because he literally was like, I will leave the Jedi Order to be with you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he's willing to chase after what he wants and not just blindly follow these rules if it means he can be happy. And so that, and like of other things in Clone Wars, like him being okay with Anakin and Padme's relationship, because we know from a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith that he knew about it and chose not to say anything. And so he, yes, is a big rule follower, but also he has his moments where he
Yeah,
realizes,
he still has that sort of attachment that
yeah,
he couldn't bring himself to confront Anakin.
exactly. And that's why I think Obi-Wan is number six and not like number 10. So I
Yeah.
really like Kenobi as well. What
And
else
yeah,
you
so
got?
we talked about the era where he was younger,
Hmm.
but we will, I mean, for the older people in the audience, I guess. That feels a little rude. But like we do acknowledge that he's him as the mentor is obviously very interesting and fun as
Yeah,
well.
that's one of the reasons he's really high on my. I love him in A New Hope. Like, just awesome.
Yeah. And my last honorable mention is Anakin Skywalker. And the reason for this is because there are so many different performances of him and so many different versions
Yeah,
that it's like the other characters that are top five are like generally purest form. Like even if they're in different projects, they're basically this like not the same, but like they still change, but like it's consistent. Whereas with Anakin, which I'm kind of excluding Darth Vader, which is probably dumb, I guess.
well, I
But
mean, he does state that Anakin Skywalker is dead, and I would consider Anakin Skywalker a Jedi. At least I
I don't
would
know.
like to.
I am when I think of Anakin, I think of Clone Wars Anakin and
Hmm.
then prequels Anakin.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot of differences within those versions, and then obviously you have Jake Lloyd. And I'm not saying he's like worse for having different actors, but like
It makes it hard to judge him against other characters.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like the other characters in my top five are they're basically like they're just more consistent and more easily like observable,
Yeah.
and so that's why Anakin didn't make the cut. But I like I like his sort of brashness, his stubbornness,
Yeah.
um, and like it's I mean it's a tragedy, you know, because like we talked about this in our mutual rankings marathon, where like we really got into his character and we were very. I feel like our discussion was a lot more graceful than a lot of other people's discussions about Anakin.
Hmm.
People seem to come down hard on him, which obviously, you know, if you kill a lot of people, you deserve to be
Yeah.
criticized.
Yeah, you do.
But a lot of like so many things were out of his control, and like it just felt like this. Everything about him was just like this pubescent, like he was just this ball of hormones and emotions that like it was just bound to happen,
Mhm.
and it makes you feel a lot of things.
It does.
Um, so that's why I like him. That's why he's on the grand list, but he just didn't edge
Yeah.
out the top five.
The reason that he's not on my list is like you said, it's so hard to compare him to other characters because it's almost like it feels like I'm being biased putting him on a list because we just know more about him than we know about basically any other character ever. You know, we've seen him from the time we've literally seen his entire life, you know, and we don't get that for many other characters. And it's so hard to compare him when you've seen an entire life versus the best moments in other people. So yeah, I wasn't able to put him on a list, but I will say my number nine. Um, he's on here. He's actually one of only two villains on my list because I've never been more scared of a villain in my life in Star Wars than I am of this man. And it's weird because he's only animated, and that's Grand Admiral Thrawn. Like
Hmm.
he genuinely scares me. Like I would see him in Rebels, and I'd be like, "Oh crap, stuff's about to go down." Like, and I'd be genuinely scared for the safety of the characters. Even Darth Vader never did that to me as a kid. Like I saw
Yeah,
him as scary, but like he never scared me as much as Thrawn scares me, and I never saw Thrawn until I was 18 years old, and he still scares me.
that's I find that funny about Rebels that like I won't fault it for this, but people make fun of it for like it has action scenes where they're just getting shot at so many times and they don't die. They don't actually get hit. So it's like you could see a room full of stormtroopers and rebels and be like, they'll get out of this one. But
Yeah,
with you could just see a shot of Thrawn observing them, and it's like this could easily go terribly, and you have
yeah,
to sit in that moment of he could kill them right now, but he still doesn't because he's a part of this. He's doing this like grand plan or whatever.
and that's more scary than anything.
Yeah, the
And
fact that he could kill you, but he wants to wait for a better moment to
yeah,
kill you.
and the fact that he just taunts people with Hera's thing that she made for her family tree, like just taunting her with her family heirloom is. Oh my gosh. And you think a plan's going well for the rebels, and then Thrawn walks in and you're like, this is not gonna work anymore. He's way too smart. Yeah, Thrawn is up there. He's one of my favorite villains in Star Wars. Absolutely love him. Coming in right, barely beating out Thrawn. About to make a lot of older fans happy. I really like Boba Fett. I've always been a fan of the Mandalorians and bounty hunters, and I like Boba Fett a lot. I really like Boba Fett in the Mandalorian as well. It kind of reminded me of my, love for Boba Fett, and we get to see another side of him, and I think that's cool. Um, so yeah, not a lot to say there. I just really like Boba Fett. It's very also just very nostalgic for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Boba Fett, and then my
I was,
last
I was waiting to see if you would say Boba Fett again.
no, my last honorable mention. I mentioned to you, Christian, before the podcast that I have a character who I think is going to be lower on my list than you will think they are, because of how their story ends. And if their story would have ended in a different way, I think they'd be higher on my list. But at number 7, I have Ben Solo, because I hate that he dies and I
Mm-hmm.
can't stand it. You know what I'm saying? I think
Mm-hmm.
if he would have lived, he would have made the top 5. But
But
I just
beyond why he's low, why does he make the five?
just I love seeing, because one of the things with Darth Vader that was talked about throughout, I guess, just episode 5 and 6, is that he has the light in him, but we're constantly told that he doesn't, and we can see that Darth Vader, we never actually see really that light in him until the very end of episode
Yeah,
6.
he gets to
Whereas,
make that one final choice.
exactly. Whereas with Ben, he's constantly just under the struggle. And
Mm-hmm.
I
And he's
love,
like he's making like 2 steps forward, 1 step back,
yeah.
that kind of
And
thing.
I love seeing him want to help Rey, and he genuinely wants to help her, but he's also scared of what will happen if he does. And that's just such a cool dynamic. But the fact that he dies after everything that he went through, he finally makes the right decision, and then he's gone. And I
Mm-hmm.
just can't, I can't. Like, I hate the ending, so he's got to be lower. So
Uh,
I had a feeling he would make your top 5. So
yeah, he's in my top 5. He is
yeah.
my number 2.
Okay.
Um,
I will say I
I
had him at number 3 originally. And then
mhm.
I started thinking about it and was like, I can't do that.
It I technically he spends most of the trilogy as a villain, but
Hmm.
like something you said about Thrawn got me thinking about like there's no villains on my list, and I think that's like I my favorites I guess are my comfort characters, just the ones that just make me feel good. To
Yeah.
they just there's either a light about them or just something that like a sweetness I guess that like comforts me I guess. And not to say that like people can have dark comfort characters. I mean, I've seen lots of people who do like fan art of Darth Maul, where it's like reclaiming his like ridiculous like evil,
Yeah.
in like a wholesome way, and it's
Hmm.
like that's their comfort.
It's because you
So I'm
start to
not
feel
gonna,
bad for him by the
yeah,
end of like Clone Wars. You're like, dude, I feel so bad for him. Like,
yeah,
honestly.
like I'm not gonna take away from anyone who like, feels like snuggling with General Grievous. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Like I tend to like really just love those light side characters, or even just like a conflicted character, someone who has a
Yeah.
good ending, a happy ending, which Ben Solo. And here's where we get to discussion of his death. I don't really think about how Rise of Skywalker actually ended anymore, because I've looked
Well,
at so many analysis.
I didn't
Yeah,
either. That's why he was so high up on my list to begin with. And then I like had to remind myself that we're
yeah,
considering the entire canon. So I have to,
yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of time criticizing Tross, but in the lead up to Tross and in the aftermath of Tross, I spent more time thinking about just what would have been better in a
hmm
positive way, and like not in a trashy way, but just like what would have been like a just a more hopeful ending, and so I still hold on to that hopeful ending, I guess.
Yeah.
Feels weird because we're kind of skipping, but that's the thing. This is not a Watch Mojo video.
It's not.
Um, so we're skipping to the really, nitty gritty stuff. So yeah, Ben Solo is just like, he's obviously he's bad. He does bad things.
He does do a few bad things, and by a few I
Just
mean a lot.
Adam Driver's performance is just so vulnerable in the midst of that. Like he doesn't perform him like a straight laced villain.
The scene of him
Um,
killing Han Solo is
yeah,
muy
like
bien.
it
Not that
feels
I
like
like that he killed Han Solo, but like it's great character development first off, like in the wrong direction, but like but
yeah,
also just the performance by Adam Driver in that scene is wonderful.
and just the idea of like seeing how he's not necessarily a normal person, but it's like you're
Hmm.
in action, you're seeing evil split someone to the bone. We get that with Anakin too, but it's like an inverse of that.
Yeah,
And and I mean Adam Driver is my favorite actor alive, I guess. So
that makes sense.
there's a lot of good things going on there.
Yeah,
I guess it started with Star Wars, but like, so seeing Kylo Ren for the first time put me down this like path with like loving Adam Driver, and like and it's fun to follow like a modern sort of
yeah,
master of acting, I guess.
it is.
Um, and I think it's really cool that like, I mean, people like to paint him as like this toxic example of of a male character, but I even as he's like doing evil stuff, he's like worshiping Rey while he's doing it.
Yeah,
Like he's not as toxic as people think. Like he's like he's got such a crush on her, even as he's like this like tormented person. Um,
yeah,
I don't want to like. Recently, there was a thing that came up where like it went. I had flashbacks of like anti Raylo like debates
hmm
that used to be like a lot in my mind, and I just got a flashback of like feeling that discourse, and I avoid it as much as I can now.
hmm
But I will touch upon it, like he didn't do the Star Killer genocide. Like that was all Hux. Hux had a huge scene in The Force Awakens, so like
yeah,
it wasn't really Kylo. Kylo just really cares about killing Luke, and like he and like letting like he wants to destroy all his repressed feelings rather than like let them
yeah,
free, I guess. Um, and then The Last Jedi, that's where we get this. Um, in a weird way, it feels more explicitly romantic than Tross. I know Tross gives us the kiss,
yeah. I
but
think you're right.
the their moments, like Rey and Kylo's moments throughout Tross, it's not a romantic story until the end, whereas Tross feels romantic like all the way through. I mean, TLJ feels romantic all the way through. Their
Yeah,
hand touch scene, the way they fight. She grabs his. Have you noticed that like she grabs his hip when they fight
yeah,
in the throne room?
yeah. She does. I've seen that GIF a
Um,
lot.
like
Also, with
that.
her crying when they wake up after like the throne room had basically been destroyed, and she's like
Mhm.
begging him to not eat. Like
And
that's legit. Like she
that
really wants him to come with her.
that's another scene where people point to him as this like toxic, like obviously he does has this outward like very bad, he does bad things obviously, but he's a
Yeah.
cinnamon roll inside. But people think that he's like worse than he is by saying that like he's like trying to belittle her or like put her down in that scene,
Yeah.
which obviously is complicated because the whole Palpatine clone thing and you're his
Hmm.
grandfather or granddaughter or whatever. But my pure experience of that movie before Trials ever came out was just like he was, again, he's not doing great. He's not doing it in a great way. He still wants to destroy things. He's not. He's the, it's what's so frustrating is that he's like zigzagging good and evil
Yeah.
rather than rolling down a hill towards evil like Anakin,
Hmm.
or like slowly crawling up the hill as Darth Vader.
Yeah, which I think is
It's like
even it's
it's
even
so
more.
complex and it's back and forth.
Yeah, which is more entertaining to me because you have no clue what he's going to do next.
And like same thing with Leia. He was gonna kill her and then he doesn't. And he keeps. I feel like that's such a mature understanding of light and darkness from Ryan Johnson because he
Yeah.
knows that it's a day by day decision rather than just you are this or you aren't this.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's more like real life. People can do bad things and then
yeah.
quickly change their mind and realize that, and that's not a, like, I hate to tell you, but someone could kill somebody and then the next day realize that was probably not the right thing to do and vow to never do it again. Like that's something that does happen, people. Like I know that that's,
You got something to get off your chest, Spencer?
yeah. I mean, listen, just don't go in my backyard and dig next to the big pine tree, okay? But no, like it's more like real life, you
Look,
know what I'm
some
saying?
people just drop their donut on the floor and get super mad and they need to blow off some steam, all right? And
Yes.
maybe, yeah, they stick a knife in an old lady's neck, okay? Those people exist if you're not aware, okay?
That really
And I
sounded
think
like
we should extend a little bit of compassion and grace here, okay? It's all I'm saying in those situations. We should be a little bit more kind to those hypothetical people,
yeah.
but they do exist.
Yeah, they do. We should. I agree. That sounded like a
But
John
yeah,
Mulaney impression.
but yeah, Kylo Ren. And like Tross, he does have that scene where he's like, it's too late for me. I think that could have been handled better, but like, you can still have a little bit of that where like that idea of like him thinking that he's too far gone,
Mhm.
even though he's practicing the thing of like a good decision, a terrible decision, a good
Also,
decision, a terrible decision.
as much as I hate the end of the movie, I really like the fight scene between him and the Knights of Ren. I think it's really cool because he also does the
Oh
funny thing where he pulls out the
yeah,
lightsaber and then he shrugs and it's like, yes,
oh yeah.
I love
Sweater
that.
Ben Solo,
Oh, I
cardigan Ben
love
Solo,
it.
like it's amazing. It's amazing how good that came across with
One of
like
the
zero
best parts of the
lines.
movie. Heck
And
yeah.
we've talked a little bit about how much of a mess the production seems to be with Ross.
Hmm.
And and from a little bit of reports, a little bit of speculation, it seems like Adam Driver was fighting tooth and nail to give the best possible representation
Good for him.
of Ben Solo, despite some lackluster ideas from JJ and Chris Terrio.
I would
But
say that
I
he's
don't
the
know.
best part of that movie. I will say it. I think he is the best part of that movie as a character.
I would say Bulio was the best part of Tross, but or Babu Frick. But do you have anything else to say? I sort of hijacked.
No, I mean, no,
Um,
listen. Like you said, this is not a Watch Mojo video. We can talk about your number two right now because it overlaps. So,
yeah.
like, we're getting both of our conversations done at one time. I do have some things that have nothing to do with the list that you have reminded me of. One of them kind of has to do with the list, and that is that Katie told me that I had to put Babu Frick in my honorable mentions.
Okay.
So she told me to tell everyone that she loves Babu Frick. Um,
Yeah, I was wondering how many side characters you'd put, and I was debating if I would put any side characters, but
I have one.
um,
No, I don't have any. I have one side character, but he's not technically a side character.
like not even like a side protagonist, like someone who's like legitimately just a
Oh, I don't
little
have any.
bit part.
No, I
Yeah.
don't have any. Um, and the other thing is you mentioned General Hux's speech in um in a, what was, oh shoot, wow,
Force
Force
Awakens.
Awakens. Yeah, that's what that movie's called. Uh so funny story. I had an audition for a drama team recently for everyone listening. Christian knows about this. But for my audition, they made me do a monologue and I did the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is my monologue. And Christian, I started to memorize General Hux's speech from The Force Awakens. Got halfway through it and realized it was too short.
So you were gonna do the Space Hitler speech, and then
Yeah.
instead did the other. I guess they're both sort of Space Hitler speeches.
Yeah, they kind of both
Um,
are. So I was gonna do General Hux's one, but then it was
The
too short.
loathsome rebellion, which acquiesces to disorder.
Yeah, I was gonna do it, but it was too short, so
That's
I
that's
wasn't
the only
going.
part I know.
Yeah, I did. I got like halfway through it. I've now forgotten it, but I did the tragedy of Darth Plagueis Wise instead. I figured people
Complete
would.
with. You told me that you did everything like complete with head turns
I
and
did. I
everything.
did. Yeah, I sat back in
Like
my chair. I sat back in my chair like this, and it went ironic. Yeah, it was very funny.
our pal Sheev.
Yeah, my man Sheev.
All
Uh,
right.
all right. So now
Who's your
with
number 4?
we're on number 5 actually. We haven't even done our number 5s yet. We've only done our honorable mentions, and then you're number 2. So
No, wasn't Ben Solo your number 5?
no, I said he was my last. He was my number 7.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Jeez, we need to get
Yeah.
on with this.
Okay. Well. Okay. Well, you had a funny idea before the podcast that we should say our answer at the same
Oh,
time. I
okay.
want to.
Now I'm glad we haven't started yet because I forgot about this sort of
Okay, I want to do
shtick
our
we've been
number
doing.
5 at the same time. Are
Okay.
you ready? Now, it's going to be weird because there's a slight delay in Zoom, so I'm going to say go, and then I'm going to wait a half a second so that I can say it at the same time as you.
Okay.
So for you, it'll sound like I say it late. Anyway, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's go.
Yes.
Yes.
That
That was
was the
so much
best.
better than I could have possibly hoped it was. Oh my god. Okay, I want everyone to know we did not plan this. And that is the coolest thing that could have possibly happened. I could have sworn that you would not put Qui-Gon on this list, but then I remembered, like right before we did this, that you love Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Out of all the characters, we both put him at number 5. Would you like to go first?
Um, I guess so. So as an extension of like my discussion with Obi-Wan is that like Qui-Gon is more similar to how I feel now in terms of questioning authority, questioning
Yeah.
rules. And I don't know, like he's there's something rewarding about just having one performance of him because he's in and he's out, and you're just left to speculate so many other things. Whereas Obi-Wan or any of these other honorable mentions have this like burden across the saga. And we've talked about this. We talked about this when we discussed Phantom Menace, is that there's so much mystery and so much like things you could do in reading into Liam Neeson's performance that like it's just endlessly delightful. You know, every
Yeah.
rewatch of the Phantom Menace, you can sort of pick up something new in his performance.
Yeah. I like you said, I love Qui-Gon. He's one we've talked about multiple times on the fact that the Jedi are not great. They're not the best people in the galaxy. You know, they have some rules that are kind of iffy. Um, but Qui-Gon is like the perfect balance between listening to the council because he is a Jedi, doing, being a good Jedi, and doing everything that it takes. But also, if there's a rule that he doesn't agree with because he thinks it's morally wrong, he's not afraid to completely go against that. You know, especially, and we see that a lot when it comes to training Anakin. He's told very clearly by Mace and Yoda not to, but he does it anyway. Or he says he's going to do it anyway because he feels like that's the right thing to do. And he feels like he can do something about it and that he can save. And the whole reason he even takes Anakin is because he feels like, I think it's less because of his midichlorian count and more because he just feels bad for this little, like, yeah, it has to do with the fact that he's very strong, but he also just genuinely feels bad for this little boy who could be so much more, but is stuck being a slave boy on Tatooine.
And I feel like there's so many other instances where Qui-Gon wanted to free slaves, and like there's been
Oh
a
yeah.
novel. There's a novel where he actually that theme is explored, and I feel like because he is still beholden to the Order with Anakin, it feels like this like way that he can work around it to where like it's essential that he does it because the Jedi could possibly need Anakin, and because it's all part of this interlocking Naboo plot.
Yeah.
And so it's like I can like not legally, it's not about law, but like I can like acceptably free a slave within the jurisdiction of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And like I don't know. There would have. I mean, it's the story isn't about him rebelling against the Jedi Order, I guess. So obviously the better scenario is where if he just like left, I guess. But it is cool to where like he's still doing his job as like this galactic like peacekeeper,
Yeah.
and he's like he gets to like fully show his compassion in a way that
Yeah.
Jedi like most Jedi wouldn't. And he like interacts with Anakin. It's like treats him as an individual because Anakin gets to choose to leave, and like it doesn't feel like this typical like systemic way that Jedi take children. It's more just like he just befriends this little pilot, you
Yeah.
know.
He said, "Do you want to go?" Instead of running in and going, "Hey, this child, he's mine now." You know, I mean, and another reason I like Qui-Gon, I know we don't like to talk about because there's no canon evidence to any of this, but with the lightsaber colors, the general consensus is that green means that you're stronger with the force than you are with I guess lightsaber
Combat.
combat, yeah, and that they're more likely to use negotiation first and lightsaber second. And I think no one better qualifies for a green lightsaber than Qui-Gon Jinn because like other
I
than
think
maybe
that
Yoda.
that's a good characterization of him, but like I feel like Obi-Wan is even more of a like Obi-Wan negotiates to a fault, and he mostly has a blue lightsaber.
Yeah. I'm just saying
But
compared
like
to
that
what
goes remember like yeah, but you acknowledged it.
none of it is canon.
We always question lightsaber color theory. Doesn't always
Listen,
make
the only
sense.
reason Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber is because Samuel Jackson was like, "Hey, it'd be cool if I had purple." And
Because I
George
want to
Luke,
identify myself when I'm with my family
yeah,
at the screening.
And George Lucas went, "Okay." Like I literally found the video this week of Samuel Jackson standing next to George Lucas and going, "Can I have a purple lightsaber?" He was like, "We'll see what we can work out." Like, okay, the lightsaber colors really don't mean a whole lot.
You're gonna say no to Sam Jackson?
Yeah, well, canonically speaking, they don't mean a whole lot. So, because
Yeah.
you have people like um you have people like Qui-Gon who have a green lightsaber who it seems like the Jedi Council kind of don't like because he's kind of rebellious, but then you have people like Plo Koon and Kiadi Mundi who are like some of the most trusted people on the council and they have blue lightsabers. So there's nothing that says that green is better than blue because I think that Kiadi Mundi especially is much more trusted by the Jedi Order than that of Qui-Gon Jinn. But I do think that by what people consider to be the standard for green lightsabers, Qui-Gon is a perfect representation of that. So yeah, that's why we like Qui-Gon so much. All right, so we both agree on Qui-Gon as our number 5, which again is just crazy that we both did that.
And hold on. But it feels like we've already like gone at length into his character.
Mm-hmm.
I guess all these characters we've spoken about at some point, like in depth. But like we went for at least like 30 minutes in the Phantom Menace episode just on Qui-Gon
Yeah.
about different things that he could have done within the Jedi, about his, in our opinion, or at least my opinion, secret relationship with me. That's just fun to speculate on.
Yeah.
Fun to fanfic, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think we'll just leave it at just we've touched on how complex he is and how much we enjoy him, I guess. So we'll move on to number 4.
All right. Are we going to do number 4 at the same time as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Wait.
What?
I forgot to pull up my list.
Oh, okay. Did you hear mine?
No,
Okay.
I did.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm sorry. I like made my list today, and
Okay.
I didn't number them until we started recording. So like I
Are you
didn't really
ready?
have them memorized.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Rose
Dinjarin.
Tico.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go first this time. You went first last time. Mine is a combo. I have Mando and Baby Grogs tied together at number 4 because I feel like you can't split them up on a list about your favorite characters. You could.
Yeah, you cannot split up Grogu and Mando. Take
Yeah.
note, Lucasfilm.
Yeah. Take note, freaking John Favreau. Come on. Anyway, but yeah, I don't feel like you can split them up on a list of your favorite characters. They have to go together. It's what makes each character that character. Um, God, I just love how far Mando has come since the first episode. 'Cause yeah, he's still like brutal. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like he's still like just as brutal as he was episode 1. But the fact that he's gone from this bounty hunter who doesn't care about anybody but himself and is just out to make money and is now he's become a father figure for this creature that he just met and is finally realizing that almost like the Jedi, that just because he was raised in something doesn't mean that it's always right. You know what I'm saying? Like he's realizing that it's okay to break tradition, especially if you're not living in that society anymore, because sometimes traditions aren't right. And sometimes it's better to just kind of do what's necessary in the moment and to do what you think is right instead of what other people, or, you know, I guess what your ancestors would think is right. And I just, it may just be because I just really like the show, but also he's just really cool. And I just love watching him on screen. I love watching him fight people. He's just so good at everything he does, but is also really nervous about everything. And it's just a cool thing to see that he's not always super confident, but he gets it done in the end because he's persistent and he just keeps going when it seems like there's no way out. And that's why I love Mando. That is my number 4. Mando and Baby Grogs.
That was a beautiful, eloquent tribute to a one of the lovelier recent additions to Star Wars. That being said, wouldn't it have been funny if Din just like stabbed Luke in the throat with his spear and it split off into this alternate timeline?
That would be funny, and I would probably like that more than the actual ending. Just kidding. I
Cool.
think I think I'd have problems with either way.
I'm fine over here. I'm just using dark humor to deflect from my disappointment.
Listen,
Anyway.
I'm talking about the character, not the show. Okay, we're talking about the character.
Well, I mean, you talked about the movie when you talked about Ben Solo, though.
I did.
The ending it plays an important role.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think that not everything there was. I now realize that I'm making a different argument for a different character, but I still think Mando's up there.
Mhm.
That's a much better ending than someone who I've come to love just dying at the end of a movie for
Yeah.
what seems like no reason. So, all right,
Anyway,
Rose Tico,
my number four is this lovely woman.
who just celebrated her birthday. Happy birthday,
Yeah,
Kelly Marie Tran.
that's why I saved that pic because I saw it and I was like,
Yeah,
that's a lovely photo.
it is.
Um, I don't know. There's so many great things about The Last Jedi that like sparked how I thought about movies differently. How I
Mhm.
thought about sparked a lot of I don't know. Have I talked to you about a hope punk?
No, I don't think so.
We could probably cover it in a whole episode, but it's essentially like an optimistic, wholesome, but still defiant and political media piece, I guess.
Hmm.
It's like it's sweet, but it's like at the same time like speaking out for justice, I guess. And like that's how The Last Jedi just affects me, I guess. And it sparked so many of like how I think politically and how I
Yeah.
approach the world, and central to that is Rose Tico.
Yep.
And I don't know. I just think she's like so perfectly cast. Uh, that I don't know. She speaks to so many central things of Star Wars, but at the same time feels like this oddball that people don't normally expect out of Star Wars movies. And I mean, that's why so many dude bros hated on her. I feel like
So
that's an
many
insignificant
dude bros.
amount. Like it's I feel like most people at least like her. It's just very
Mhm.
some people are just very loud about how, you know, racist or sexist or whatever there might be. Some people are just blind to taste, I guess. Um it's a whole mess of things. But
Mhm.
I just she's only been in, I mean, well, yeah. She's been in 2 movies, but mostly just 1
She's really
movie.
just been in one movie.
Yet I'm still finding it so hard to put it into words.
Yeah.
Um
I think it's just a thing that is understandable if you like the character.
it's just like it just clicks, you know.
Yeah.
Um and we talked about this before. I mean, it's not like this like deep thing, but like
Yeah.
it's not like something that I write notes about. But like when we talked about like our criteria for like our favorite characters, one of the criteria I asked you about was like if you have a crush on the character or the actress or actor. And so like I mean, I think she's a beautiful woman, I guess. And so like
Yeah.
that plays a factor, I guess. Um but um
Joke's on you. That's why I have Mando.
but like
Can't get enough of Pedro Pascal.
yeah, that's a great reason. But I don't know. But it's also I think that personally, but it's also part of why I intellectually like the character, because one of the things behind the scenes in The Last Jedi, the documentary, I guess, was the costume designer wanted to put Rose in like an elegant ball gown as
Yeah.
part of her disguise, and he also, I think, I forget, I haven't watched the documentary in a while, but I feel like the casting director, or not the casting, the costume designer had said something about like making her look more pretty or elegant or slim, I guess.
Hmm.
And Ryan Johnson stuck up for her, where it was like, or stood up for her, where it was like, no, she's supposed to be what is like representation wise not seen as beautiful. It's not what the beauty standards necessarily align with. Um, and if you've deprogrammed that out of how you think about people, then like obviously you're gonna see that she's beautiful. But part of like I don't know that characterization of just like no, screw you, costume designer. She's just gonna wear what she's wearing,
Yeah.
and she's awesome that way, and she doesn't have to blend in with anyone. She's just who she
This
is.
isn't one of those scenes where the nerdy girl takes off her glasses and gets in a dress and walks into slow-mo music. This isn't what
Exactly.
that is.
Yeah. Um. And so many other things. Like she's like the way that she plays off of BB-8 and Finn, like so like the father plot line, like the
And
Canto Bight
DJ.
stuff.
And DJ, when she gets really mad at him and like
Yeah.
almost beats the living crap out of him, like that's
Yeah.
awesome.
We talked about it at length in Last Jedi,
Yeah.
the on our Mitchell Rankings marathon episode, where it's just like that plot line is legitimately good for us, and we love the tone, and we love
Yeah.
how it's like this mesh of the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy in terms of tone
Big
and
Moss Eisley
whimsy.
vibes.
Yeah, the chase sequence, and
Hmm.
it's just again, it's hope punk. It's just
Yeah.
that gleeful but like defiant sort of take on Star Wars that I love, and was missing from Tross, but I'm not going to dwell on that. But yeah, she's my top 4
Yeah.
character.
This episode's going a lot longer than I thought it was. I made a comment at the beginning of the episode saying that this might be a shorter episode, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it'll be normal length, so that's cool. I'm glad that we
You
have a
know,
lot.
this is good because sorry, you can cut some of this. Like sometimes depending on our episode plan or whatever, we have different sort of modes of investment in terms of preparing for an episode.
Yeah.
And so we think we're setting us up for a short episode, and what it really boils down to is that somehow we escape into this like pocket of the universe where like we're just going deep into stuff, and it
Heck
doesn't even
yeah.
matter that we barely prepared, and we're able to make it great, I guess.
I made my list 10 minutes before we recorded. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Was I
I've been
was I
thinking
being
about
too
it.
arrogant? Was I being too arrogant? Should we cut that out?
No, that was cool. I'm gonna keep it in. Now
Okay.
it's good. Like that's exactly what happens. But like I've been thinking about my list for a while, but I didn't put it down on paper until like 20 minutes before we recorded. So, you know, for number 3 though, I think this may be the last one that we can possibly agree on because I know what your number 2 we know what your number 2 is, and that's not my number 2. And I think I know what your number 1 is, but it's definitely not my number 1. So, I think 3 might be the only other one we can agree on, but I don't think we're going to. All right, you ready? 3,
Three,
2, 1.
two, one.
Ezra
Ahsoka
Bridger.
Tano.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
We both
I thought for certain that we were gonna tie again.
no.
Like I didn't think we were gonna tie for number one, but I thought Ahsoka was gonna be our bridge, I guess. But instead, it's the bridger.
Yeah, Ezra Bridger. All right, you can go first. Ahsoka Tano. Why is she your number 3?
Um, she's like, I don't know. She's like a mix between Anakin and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. She's like all those. This is my favorite take on a Jedi and a Force user. We've talked about why we like Ahsoka. So
Yeah, and I will
feel like
say,
it's I
since
feel like
you've
it's not. I don't have as much fresh opinions on her. She's just I don't know. Part of it is like I got to grow up with her. You know,
yeah,
she's the only character you can really say that for Star Wars, where like she was. I've tracked her from age 8 to 18, basically.
yeah,
Like my age, 18, not her.
yeah. No, I know
And
what
so like I'm not. Yeah, it's not. That's not a creepy.
you mean.
But I don't know. It's just like when it was happening, I didn't even like think about what was happening. But when I look back on it, it's like for that period of time, that was part of what Star Wars was.
Yeah.
And I guess when I was like when Clone Wars was already ending or had already ended for the time being, and I was like finally like looking at online stuff and about Star Wars, most of my content had to do with people who were in their 30s or 40s because that's like there was just people who already had jobs doing this sort of stuff. And so that was when I was like fed other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And so and like I wasn't fully formulating my own. And so I was into this space where like I was informing myself on what Star Wars was to them and wasn't focusing in on what it was to me. And so I didn't even realize like I was thinking more about like and part of it's like a history thing where you want to know what it was like when the original trilogy came out.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, she like without even me even like verbalizing it, it's just always been Ahsoka like evolving and growing and like part of that era, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's quintessentially Star Wars. It's just like I can't really describe it.
Yeah, and I know we already talked about your number 2, but my number 2 is Ahsoka. I had
Okay.
Ahsoka at number 2. Like I definitely had her. Like I love the fact that we even more than Qui-Gon Jinn, we get a Jedi who really does realize the fault of the Jedi and actually does something about it. She decides that she's not going to live by this, you know, God, what's that word? It's a really big word.
Dogma.
Sure. Yeah, that's not what I was thinking of, but okay. The she's not going to live with the hypocrisy of the Jedi. You know what I'm saying?
Hubris?
No.
How
It's
long is the word?
it's fine. It's pretty long, but it's fine. Um, but you see someone who really realizes the fault and decides to actually do something about it, and she ends up becoming a better person because of that, because she starts to realize who she is, not who the Jedi want her to be. Because she definitely changes between, Clone Wars and Rebels. Not a lot, because she's kind of herself anyway during Clone Wars. She's the Jedi who's going to do what's best for the people around her, not necessarily what's best for the Jedi and for the image of the Jedi. A great example is when she helps to free Saw Gerrera and his sister, who I cannot remember her name, saved my life, from the people who are basically enslaving their city. She does. She's basically told not to do anything by Obi-Wan and Anakin because that will make the Jedi look bad. But she finds a way to help without breaking the rule because, she doesn't want to go against what Anakin says, but she also just has such a desire to help people that is nothing like any other Jedi that we've ever seen. And one word that I think perfectly describes Star Wars, if you had to do one word, is hope, because everything in Star Wars is about hope. And I don't think any Jedi or I don't think any character in Star Wars represents hope better than Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, like she has like she and Anakin both share that empathy and like
Mm-hmm.
passion that they're not afraid to use. But like Anakin is like a shaken up bottle of monster that like, and it's like focused on individuals, and Ahsoka's able to like sort of breathe and like extend that out to anyone,
Yeah.
and at the cost of like, I guess, a romance or just like any sort of intense attachment. Like she's
Us.
able to just sort of go about the galaxy. I'm talking like post Jedi life, where she
Mm-hmm.
just goes and like does the best thing for anyone possible.
Yeah.
That like she's that, and it's a good hopeful thing to end on, because like it's tragic the way that Anakin went out, and so to see his apprentice who learned from him that like carried things with her that was from him that like improved upon him, I guess,
Yeah.
is really it's a I feel like that's like a comforting thing if you're down about Revenge of the Sith or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can, if you're down about ending of Revenge of the Sith, you can think about all the good things Ahsoka did afterwards.
Yeah. And I think that like she mentions this a lot or she mentions this once in Rebels or something, but she overcomes the biggest flaw that I think the Jedi have and the biggest reason the Jedi lost to the Separatists, other than the fact that the whole war was being plotted by one guy who was playing both sides. The Jedi also have this thing where they like refuse to kill people, like
What?
where they're like, well, let's take them in, right? Like let's go question them or whatever. Whereas like that they're gonna get out eventually. And there's been a lot of situations that we see in Clone Wars where like the Jedi take someone hostage and then they get loose and they end up just doing more battles, where that it's better for the war if they treat it like a war and not like a rescue mission. Whereas Ahsoka says a line in Rebels where she says, "I'm no Jedi," and then goes and fights people because she realizes that's the best way to solve the issue. Like maybe it's not the most moral thing in the world, but she has to do what she has to do to save the people, or to save people, and to, I guess, save them from their oppressors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem the Jedi have, is that they're almost too moral, but also not moral. It's weird. They're moral in
I
some
wouldn't.
ways and then super
Yeah.
immoral in other ways.
I
It's
wouldn't
weird.
say I disagree with you, but I wouldn't say I agree with you.
It's a weird gray area that I'm not even sure
It's.
I totally agree with myself on, but
I think it's.
I think
I
about it
it
sometimes.
depends on context,
Yeah, it
because I
definitely
feel
does.
like if the Jedi were to like murder a village's leader in front of the village, even if the village was harming if the leader was harming the village,
Yeah.
they would interpret that as like you're causing more chaos
Yeah, no,
by
it definitely
by
depends on the
like
situation.
representing the entire Jedi Order and murdering someone viciously. Like that's just a hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
But
you
yeah,
also
it's
know, but you
I
also
wouldn't
know
say
that,
that she like I wouldn't say she improved upon it. It was she just like shows a reasonably acceptable version of tactics in
but you
some
also know
situations.
that like Anakin killing Dooku was probably like a good, like for the war, it was probably a good thing for him to do because Dooku is known to just get away and then just cause more trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it was definitely a ploy to get him to turn to the dark side.
I feel like the like if Anakin decided not to kill Dooku, he would be setting aside his pride. Because Dooku has this like strong hold on him that like
Yeah,
Dooku would always like belittle him, and so if he was able to put that aside and just be democratic about it,
yeah,
like it's also a thing where like this is a tangent, but like you know how like people talk about morality is what you do when no one's watching,
hmm,
and Obi-Wan is like always the angel on Anakin's shoulder, I guess.
yeah,
And Obi-Wan was physically not able to watch because he was injured at that point.
hmm,
So it's like that's like the purest Anakin. It's just Obi-Wan's not there to check him,
yeah.
and it's just like I don't know. It's just interesting.
I agree. So I know I said Ezra is my number three. There's not a whole lot to say about Ezra that we haven't said about other Jedi on this list, but the fact that he's being trained apart from the Jedi Order, he wants to learn about the past of the Jedi. So he's definitely about that tradition, but he's also just about helping people. And he's able to make, when it matters, when the whole like galaxy is at stake, he's willing to make the sacrifice that's needed at the end of Rebels. You know what I'm saying? Like he knows that Thrawn needs to go. And he can't think of a solution. The only solution he can think of is to make the sacrifice, and he's willing to do it. Um,
Spoilers for Rebels.
yeah, spoilers for
If
Rebels if you haven't seen it. But I think
isn't that
Ezra,
fun that don't do you feel like so relieved that you can say that now?
yeah, makes me feel good. But I believe that Ezra is another one of those examples of someone who, abides by the laws of the Jedi because Kanan taught them to him, but is also not afraid to, stand up for what he believes in and help the people that he loves or just whoever's in need. Stand up for the little guy because he was that little guy at one point. So Ezra Bridger, number trace.
Can you speak a little bit on obviously you didn't go season to season, but what is it like spending however many months you did watching
It
Rebels?
was only a month.
Like was it was season 1 to season 4 a
In like a
month, right?
month. Yeah.
Like there was no like break that you did?
Nope.
So yeah, what was it like to spend a whole month with that much content
It was
with that
awesome.
much
I'm not
like
gonna lie. It was pretty awesome because
but
I
like
never
specifically with Ezra, like what was it like to think about him as the protagonist through all that time?
it gives you because I feel like his change is so gradual that if you were to watch it as it was coming out, you almost wouldn't notice it until you like look back at where he was and you're like, wow, he's really come a long way, but you don't notice it. But when you binge watch it, you really notice his change episode to episode because like you just
Mhm.
saw him 2 episodes ago doing this, but now you see how much he's matured in just a few episodes. And you know, I think that that's a really cool way to watch Rebels because you just see the maturity of him much faster and you kind of realize it more as you're watching it than if you were to watch week to week and see that very gradual. I mean, there is a huge
Yeah.
leap between seasons, but from episode to episode, there is still a gradual change that you get that you wouldn't get if you just watched it week to week. So that was really cool for me to watch.
It would be interesting to compare that with Avatar: The Last Airbender because
Yeah,
we do intend on talking about that show on on a later episode of this podcast.
which I also binge watched in an entire month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
So
a bad
because
problem with.
that's a huge feature of the show in
Yeah,
terms of like
hmm,
it's a fun show to do like in pieces but also just like binge, I guess.
yeah.
And like the maturity level of the characters like goes so many different ways. But we won't go in depth on that because this is as of now a purely Star Wars podcast.
Yes. All right, so we have our number one left, and we won't. I mean, we're going longer than usual, so I hope you guys like longer episodes. We've both talked about our
Oh,
number twos,
that's convenient. Yeah, that
so
the overlaps were the twos,
we're
so
the
we
twos.
don't
So
even
yeah,
have
we
to
don't have
like.
to talk about number two. That's epic. But no, so I hope you guys like longer episodes because we have one more left, and that's our number ones. And because we want this to kind of be like, yeah, it's our number one, we won't do them at the same time.
Yeah,
Because
we will.
you want to? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I now don't know what yours is because I thought yours was going to be Ahsoka. Oh no,
But
I know who yours is. No, I know who yours is. Never mind. Okay.
I know who yours is.
Yeah, and I think I know who
We're not
yours
gonna
is.
we're not gonna match up, but
No, we're not.
it's still
It's
worth
gonna be
saying though.
okay. You ready? Three,
Three,
two,
two,
one.
one.
C3PO.
Ray.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's not what I thought it was gonna be. I thought you were gonna say Kit Fisto.
No. No.
Yeah,
Um my interpretation has always been that you like C3PO because you look like him.
that's. I mean, kinda. Yeah.
If you
I'm
don't know
just.
what Spencer looks like, he is a tall, slim, golden, like like person with a very round head.
I have the perfect head shape to be C3PO.
Yeah.
An upside down egg.
Yeah. So
I'm also tall, skinny, and blonde, so it works.
yeah.
Um, no, the real reason I like C3PO is because I'm always about like he's one of the characters I've always been able to relate to in every situation he's ever been in. You know what I'm saying?
He's because you have younger siblings, so he's like an older brother to R2. Is that
Yeah,
anything to do with it?
yeah, it definitely is. Like I feel bad for him in situations where R2 is just being R2 and he's like, "Why are you doing this? Like stop. Like we have to do this cuz Master Luke told us to do this. So quit whining and just come on." Or else I'm just gonna leave you here. Like in A New Hope, he literally just goes, "All right, well, I'm going this way, so I'll see you later," and just leaves. You don't know how many times I've wanted to do that to my siblings, but it's also just like I've always been the guy that if like I'm in a bad situation, I crack a joke. Now C3PO doesn't do it on purpose. It just
Yeah.
happens to be that he's always that really sarcastic, like always really blunt guy who ends up making a joke um at a time. Yeah, and just like making jokes that shouldn't be made in situations. Like I love C3PO to the point where Katie got me a C3PO mug for Christmas, and I got a C3PO shirt for Christmas. Like I love C3PO. He's wonderful. He's just so comedic, yet he is. I think he's the audience perspective, especially in the OT. Um, he is because he doesn't know anything. He knows just as much as we do and we kind of learn things at the same time as he does. So we're kind of that bridge between us and the characters is through C3PO. I also just love Anthony Daniels. His performance of C3PO is absolutely wonderful. And he has been confirmed that he's coming back at least once. And I cannot
Yeah.
be happier for it because I thought he had retired because he said he was. And
Um,
very happy to
it's
have him back.
it's funny that you bring up his dynamic with R2 because it made me realize that like I could have easily put R2 on the list because if we're
Oh,
talking about relatability, I probably relate.
I also have my C3PO Lego right here that I have beside me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't have a Funko
Like
Pop of C3PO.
like if we're talking relatability, I probably relate to R2, I guess. At least in how like what do you what would your take be on that?
That you relate to
Like
R2?
yeah, like am I like R2 to you in
No,
our
I think
interactions?
R2 talks more. Just kidding.
What?
Just kidding. I don't know. It seems like R2 back talks a whole lot, whereas you seem to be more like,
Well, we don't have to like cooperate in like tough situations like that.
yeah. I don't know. I think to an extent, yeah. You're definitely like you definitely relate to R2D2. I think.
I don't know. Physically, like almost there's a comparison. I don't know. I wouldn't put him on the top 5 for me though, because like
Yeah.
I focus so much on emotional arcs that I just didn't even think about putting a droid in.
Well,
And those
Katie,
kind of characters don't normally have emotional arcs in the stories.
yeah,
So.
well, Katie was telling me that her favorite character is K2SO, which is a character that I can't wait to see back in Andor. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, C3PO is also just like I did get emotional when he like said that when he, the taking one last look at my friends, like that
Oh
was
yeah, I love
sad.
that trailer. That's a great Star Wars trailer. Such a good trailer.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, you like the God guy.
I do. He's the character that I connect the most with. And it may not be because of emotional ties, but I'm sticking to it. He's the one that if I see him on screen, I just immediately get happy. I'm just like, yes. So, C3PO,
Yeah.
top character, top tier. All right.
Um. Well, mine's Ray.
Yeah. And talk about
Ray,
it.
preferably Ray Nobody.
Ray nobody.
But
Ooh,
obviously she has some scene stealing moments in Tross as well,
mm-hmm.
even though we don't like that movie.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I had to put her number one because her being the center of the sequel trilogy, and I've talked about how like the sequels sort of really pushed me in a certain direction in terms of thinking about movies,
Yeah, and I think she
the
had a big part in
worlds.
that.
Yeah, so she was, and not only like the themes of the story, but like this is part of the themes of the story, but like it's the most when I first was watching these, I guess it was the most engagement I'd done with a female-led story, which is, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I mean, there's plenty of like shows and movies I guess I'd seen before, but like because I was so into Star Wars, like that was such a focus, I guess. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought about it so much, and I thought about looked at so many podcasts and videos that it got me down this rabbit hole of like just the sort of like ideology behind why women led stories are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me to push myself to like go across what seems to be the boundaries for taste, um for guys, I guess. And I don't care about what's a guy movie, what's a chick flick. I don't
Yeah.
even like the term chick flick. I think it's demeaning. um which it seems like an off topic almost that I'm getting from like to this from Ray, but like she's just the starting point for so many different developments in how I interact with movies and how I like sort of understand, like I'm trying, like I guess I try to understand experiences that are not my own.
Yeah.
And so Ray was the impetus for that. But to get into her character, we talked about the sequel movies in our mutual rankings marathon, but she's just like that. She's such an interesting, compelling, similar to Kylo in terms of like that sequel era sort of complexity that's sort of building on everything we've seen before. And I just love her, like her quest for like community, her vulnerability, that like,
Yeah.
but also her power and her rage. It's like her righteous rage at Kylo and being so fed up with him wanting to kill his own family when that's like the only thing Ray wants is family. Like that's such a I
Yeah.
that it's hard to talk about them separately because they're so intertwined. It's such a yin yang. Like they're inverses of each other, and the fact that that's like the centerpiece of that trilogy
Yeah.
is
The only
like
reason,
I could have easily become a full on like Marvel stan, but because the sequels are so complex in that way, like it like reinforced and it got me to be like solidify me as like I'm a Star Wars person,
yeah, and the only reason I don't have her on my list is again, I have that thing where like I really can't stand the way it ended. Same reason Kylo's not higher on my list. I literally cannot get past. Like this is at least with Kylo, I can put him on my honorable mentions because it's not like the end of the world kind of thing. But like this was like insane. Like I can't. I can't with that, right? Like it literally made me hate a movie. I can't just deal with the
Mhm.
way that ended. So you're
Yeah,
much better than me about just ignoring that, and kind of just
yeah,
focusing on what's good. So
yeah. I'm getting good at compartmentalizing. Like if I
yeah.
have a friend or relative who has like legitimately crazy ideas about politics or just
Hmm.
evil like, perspectives, I can be like, I can interpret that and be like, that is ridiculous, and have a short discussion with them about it. But then later go about my day with them, and it be like this civil, like,
Yeah.
affectionate thing.
Hmm.
Um, that's like based off of our long-term relationship. The short-term relationship, though, is you should rethink how you
Yeah.
do your ideas, I guess. That's off topic though. But yeah, I in terms
Hmm.
of like the Rise of Skywalker film, I had like I've just been able to flash back to before that movie came out, and everything that I hoped the movie was, I just accept that as what happened, I guess, or
Yeah.
just the spirit is still alive in me, I guess. So I'm
Yeah.
able to just
Understandable.
feel that sort of natural progression that I foresaw. And so for me, Ray is with Kylo on a farm in Naboo, and they're hanging out. It's a peaceful galaxy. They don't have kids yet, but they might have them later. Um,
Just please God, don't be twins.
she's not training Jedi because we don't need to train Jedi. It's just sort of like the Jedi aren't like a centralized thing. It can vary from planet to planet. Um, and she's part of like meetings, I guess, to decide those decisions, but she's not in an honestly though, I'm doing a power fantasy where I'm Ray and I don't have a job and I don't need a job and I'm on Naboo
Nice.
because that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because think about it, how many Jedi don't have jobs? They all have jobs because they're being Jedi. That's so
Hmm.
boring and annoying. No, it's not boring because they almost die every day, but
Yeah.
it's gotta be tedious. So
Yeah.
I just like to think that she's just going on a date with Kylo every day in Naboo, um, giving fruit to little children or whatever
Very
in the
nice.
street.
I like it. I really liked this list. I think our lists are both very good. They're different, but like I agree with all of yours, you know? We didn't have anything that like either of us were like, why in the world do you have that person on your list like that? Like I almost put Jar Jar as my honorable mention just to, like spice things up as a joke, and then I realized that we would
Ben
both,
Quadraneros.
but then we'd both end up agreeing that Jar Jar is kind of a cool character after we talked about it.
Yeah,
And so,
I appreciate him. I just
oh
like
yeah, like I don't hate him like some
I
people
can't
do.
put him at the top though.
No, like I was gonna put him as an honorable mention as a joke, and then I realized that we'd
Yeah,
both end up getting into it and realizing that he's a good character for the story, and then we'd be like, "Oh, this isn't a joke anymore," and so it wouldn't be funny. So I didn't put him on.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so thank you everyone for listening to this longer episode. We very much enjoyed doing this one. This was a lot easier than analyzing a piece of Star Wars media like we have in the past. This was just a good, hearty conversation about Star Wars. That was not the right word to use. A good heartwarming
Not
conversation about
Hardy makes sense too.
yeah about Star Wars characters and why we love them so much. Christian, anything else to say before we outro this video? I mean, this
McClunky.
podcast. McClunky, thank you. Well, we'd like to thank you again for listening to this episode of the Last Star Wars podcast. If you would like to go follow us on Instagram, I am spncr.c on Instagram. Christian is Mr. Kriller. You can also go follow our podcast at Last Star Wars Pod on Instagram and Twitter, or on Facebook at the Last Star Wars Pod, also on YouTube, where we post all these episodes on there as soon as they come out. If you would like to email the show, let us know what you want to talk about. Let us know what episodes you want to see. Let us know who your favorite Star Wars characters are. We'll read those out on the show for sure. If you want us to stay anonymous, we can do that too. So yeah, you can email us at laststarwarspod@gmail.com. Last thing here, if you want to stay up to date with all your Star Wars podcasts about everything to do with a galaxy far, far away, you can go to starwarsnowthis.com. Link is in the description, and you will find a great archive of a ton of different Star Wars podcasts from a variety of hosts around the globe. We've been recommending it for months, and we think it's a wonderful thing. They're the ones putting on Star Wars Pod Day, to which you can share by using the hashtag SWPD2021 on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Last Star Wars Podcast, and we'll see you next week.